This is GovExec Daily, where we bring you the federal stories that really matter. It's October 29th, 2021. I'm Ross John Fortune. The deadline for most federal employees to get vaccinated against COVID-19 is November 22nd, unless those feds are granted an exception. Some agencies have earlier deadlines, such as the Veterans Affairs Department. According to our reporting, only 70% of VA's healthcare workforce has uploaded proof of their COVID-19 inoculation, and the agency is going to begin the discipline process for these employees soon. Our guest today talked to feds at agencies like USDA, NASA, and other agencies who said they would be willing to lose their jobs instead of getting vaccinated. Though they speak for just a small fraction of the 2+ million federal civil servants, their exemption requests or job vacancies might have a big impact on government operations. As our show has often covered, the federal government has trouble hiring and retaining talent, so even losing small percentages of workforce at agencies will present real challenges. Senior correspondent Eric Katz has been covering the COVID-19 crisis and the vaccine mandate for feds. After a short break, he'll join me to discuss the numbers as the deadline approaches. Want to hear more from GovExec, NextGov, Defense One, and Route 50? Tune in to our virtual events to hear interviews with government leaders about the most important topics today, including the federal workforce, health IT, artificial intelligence, 5G, and more. Visit govexec.com/events to learn more. The deadline for most federal employees to get vaccinated against COVID-19, unless they're granted an exception, is November 22nd. Some feds have maintained that they will fight the mandate in court, while others may just quit, and even more may apply for exemptions. With that deadline coming up, members of Congress have questions about the workforce implications of the White House's mandate. Eric Katz is a reporter for us here at GovExec. He joins me now to talk about the state of the vaccine mandate for federal employees. Welcome back to the program.
Oh, good to be here.
Last time you were on the show, you talked about all the unvaccinated people at the Veterans Affairs Department and the discipline process. What is the status of that, and what more do we know about what's going on at that agency since you were last on?
Yeah. So it's interesting. The VA, like all federal agencies, originally had employees quote unquote, prove that they were vaccinated just by signing a form saying I'm vaccinated. But the Biden administration has since put out guidance requiring that employees show like actual documentation. So that sort of set VA back. They were at 88% of people had attested that they were vaccinated. And now they're only at 70% who have actually shown proof. And that's past the deadline for the healthcare workers, which is about, or healthcare adjacent, which is about 380,000 employees. So only about 70% of those have shown that they're vaccinated by the deadline. The other 30% are not necessarily unvaccinated. They might just be lagging and getting their paperwork in, or they also may be asking for exemptions, religious or medical. I asked the VA secretary recently about that, and he said that the medical exemption requests were way up above what they had been last year when there was a mandate for the flu vaccine. So people are seeking those religious exemptions, and VA is going to sort out case by case whether to approve them. They're not going to ask questions about, are you really religious, or is this really a part of your religion? They'll take that at face value, but they will assess whether they can accommodate it. If every nurse in one field, in one facility says, requests of a religious exemption, then they're going to deny some of them or all of them because they can't have no nurses. who are unvaccinated. At least that's the thinking that the secretary explained to me. So if a legitimate religious exemption could still be denied and you could still be fired if it's in the a certain circumstance. So that's really where things are. VA said, they're a really disparate organization. So they've got facilities all over the country, and they're still trying to cobble together their data to get a more precise figure and get a better sense of where they stand. But they've started the disciplinary process for that 30%, or at least part of that 30%, which as of when we last wrote about it was only meaning that it would counseling. So you would sort of get an information session over the course of a week that explains the efficacy of the vaccine and its safety, and try to answer questions and push employees in the right direction in terms of getting vaccinated. And if that doesn't work, then they would go up to the next level, which is presumably suspension and then ultimately firing.
Yeah, it's a big agency. So as you mentioned, getting all the information, all the data together is, I imagine, a pretty heavy task, and certainly sifting through all the individual exemption requests will be similarly difficult to do. But since you were last on the show talking about the VA and the vaccine mandate, you had a story headlined "Meet the Federal Employees Who Will Refuse the COVID-19 Vaccine." You talked to a bunch of people who are at various levels of refusal. What did they say? And is there any way to convince these people to get vaccinated?
For most of them, they're saying they're going to stick to their guns. I did speak to a couple people. I quoted one in the story who was very hesitant and resistant. And ultimately, because of the mandate, she just got her second dose a few days ago. So there are obviously cases of this working, and the VA is a good example of a place where as the deadline approached, they actually did see their numbers increase pretty significantly. So by and large, I guess you could say that it's doing its job. But there are holdouts that they're saying under no circumstance will they get vaccinated. They're going to retire. A lot for some of these people, the decision's easier because they're retirement eligible. One woman I spoke to at NASA, she was going to retire in 2022 anyway, so now she might retire in 2021. But she's seeking a religious exemption and hoping that she can stick to her pre-planned schedule. So most of them are seeking exemption. Some of them, I guess, said that they'll just quit no matter what. And I'll have to follow up with them to see if they follow through with it, or if they're granted their exemptions. But for now, they're saying they're going to stick to their guns on this.
That's going to get a lot of people suspended, or in the case of what you talked about with the VA, in these counseling sessions, or potentially fired. Are they facing that head on, and how much of it is big talk, how much of it is real beliefs, how much are people going to try and get religious exemption? I mean, where do you see this sort of going specifically for the people that you talk to? I mean, I know you mentioned one person who got her second dose, but everyone else, they seem pretty hell-bent on doing this.
Yeah, the woman I spoke to, she's featured prominently in the story. She's organizing a group of NASA employees, both contractors and feds, who are all, trying to band together against this mandate. She had about 100 people in her group as of when we published, and I've talked to her since. She said, since the story gained attention, she's gotten even more people in her group. So it's not, it's definitely a very small minority, but it's not of federal employees who are pursuing this path. But it's not nothing. There are thousands of feds out there who are saying that they're not going to get vaccinated. So I think the path for them is, there a couple people are saying, I'll figure it out. If I get fired, I'll figure out something else, but I'm not gonna get the shot. Other people, like I said, are just going to retire because they're already retirement eligible. A couple of people told me they were seeking like a medical retirement, which is a different thing that allows you to retire before you would normally be eligible. And they'll leave if they don't get that. So, maybe when the rubber really meets the road, they'll sing a different tune. As of now, this is what they're saying. And, like you mentioned at the top, we're pretty close to the deadline here. So it's the time for them to change their mind is closing very quickly here. So, I think there's going to be people who leave. I don't think it's going to be something that's super disruptive across the federal workforce, but maybe a couple agencies will feel the pinch a little bit. We've reported on a couple agencies who said they're making contingency plans in case there is a large exodus. TSA is about to get into its really busy time with people traveling for the holidays, and I think as of we last reported 60% had proven they're vaccinated. So that could obviously cause disruptions for travelers and for the agency. So they're trying to make plans for that. But yeah, the deadline's approaching.
Yeah, so to just kind of expand on that a little bit, our colleague Courtney Bublé wrote a story this week about Republicans on the Oversight Committee in the House who they want to know more about the vaccine mandate, specifically about attrition and hiring in the workforce. And that's, kind of the through line of what we've been talking about, this notion of is there going to be a fair amount of attrition at agencies that will impact operations? That's obviously before we get into the December CR mess. But these people say they're willing to lose their jobs. I mean, you've mentioned TSA. Will we see other agencies have to deal with staff shortages or suspensions or these kinds of attrition problems?
It's definitely something that, like I said, it could affect certain agencies. I don't expect widespread impact across government where every agency is sort of reeling for staff all of a sudden. I think maybe certain offices will feel it a little bit more than others. Like I said, that at NASA, they're going up against potentially hundreds of employees just in this one group that are trying to seek exemptions or not get vaccinated at all, without any reason. And these aren't necessarily, only a certain type of employee. The one I spoke to is she, I think, is a engineer at for the space station program. So, and she's been at NASA for almost 40 years, very experienced. So, there's that thread of institutional knowledge walking out the door. So that, that's always a problem when you have people like that leave your agency. I think we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We have a couple examples of agencies that have reported numbers. DOD, I mentioned TSA, also DOD civilians are really lagging. And that's a lot of employees. That's like 750,000 civilian employees there. So, if you're talking about hundreds of thousands who haven't shown that they're vaccinated yet, they still have time. But that could definitely be a big disruption. If there's even tens of thousands of people affected by this who are facing firing. So we'll have to see. Well, another big factor is how accommodating our agency is going to be with these exemption requests. If they're really strict and they turn them down, then it could be a much bigger impact, or maybe those employees will decide that to get vaccinated, that was their last stand. We'll have to see about that. So a lot of factors, but I think, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We'll wait until agencies are able to start reporting their numbers. And then we'll know for sure. I've asked every single major federal agency, and only a couple have are willing to make that public. As far as their vaccine rates. So there's a lot we don't know still.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that seems to be a major. Until we get more data from the agencies, that's going to be a phrase we say a lot. That we're just waiting to know more. And until we get to that deadline, I think and probably even after, we're going to be a little bit in the dark when it comes to the data.
And just add on to that, technically, it's up to like the frontline supervisor to make determination on what sort of discipline to pursue. They don't necessarily have to fire somebody. They might decide this person's so important that we're going to work around it somehow. Or that, they'll make some kind of accommodation where they don't come into the office, something like that. So yeah, there's that's just another area of uncertainty, like you were just saying.
Yeah, we're just going to have to hope for the best. I'm sorry to say, in a lot of these cases, I know we've had employment attorneys on here, basically saying that this is going to be a real nightmare for managers, and I don't think that's too much. I don't think that's hyperbole in any real way. Certainly, we'll be watching that. And Eric, good luck this coming weekend. I don't know our listeners need to know about your personal life, but Eric's got some big life stuff going on now.
Last podcast as a single man.
He's getting married this weekend. I didn't want to spill that, but good luck with that, and we hope you have a wonderful honeymoon going to Spain. Correct, if I'm correct?
That's correct.
Where I was a couple weeks ago. And so enjoy, and felicidades, and thanks for being on the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to GovExec Daily. Our show was produced by Adam Butler and hosted by me, Ross John Fortune. We want to thank Eric Katz for joining the program. Our music is the song Signals by Catfish Dancing. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or anywhere you get your podcasts. You can email us any feedback at podcast@govexec.com or hit us up on Twitter @govexec. We'd love to hear from you. We'll talk to you later.